This episode of Quite Frankly was made possible by our friends from MacFun, great photo editing software for Mac. Go to our special MacFun community website for exclusive deals just for you guys.
Hey Joe, welcome in our studio. How are you?
Frank, it's good to be here.
Awesome. So we just did professional imaging. That's actually where I lost my voice. So how did you like doing a show in the Netherlands?
Wonderful. In fact, really, the people were great. It's always great to be around creative people, excited about photography, and that's why I do this.
Yeah, and now during the live show you did something else. Because a lot of people know you from heavy compositing and all that stuff that you do with these sporters. And I saw you do something completely different. Now, you told me you have a certain idea, a certain vision about what a photographer should do.
Oh, okay, all right. Right. You mean in terms of my definition of a photographer?
Yeah.
Well, so think about it. I was 14 years old when I started out in photography, in a photography class, and then I loved the idea of taking a camera and documenting the world around me, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, telling stories.
I went on backpacking trips and, whatever. And then when I got into college, I had a professor, and it was in the, fine arts, more fine arts. And he opened my eyes to the idea that photography is a creative process, that you could be an artist and go out and create something that's unique to you. And I've been chasing that ever since. That was 1977. So but when film we went to digital, that transition, I did a little kicking and screaming doing that because I loved film. What was wrong with film?
Yeah.
For years I've been using film, and film kept getting better and better, right? And then when digital came along, it's like, oh, I don't know. But eventually, when we realized digital is here to stay, I started diving in. I was already scanning my stuff, right, and working in Photoshop. But by the time I started doing composites, which I was actually early on doing composites, not because I'm so smart, but because of the clients that I had, budgets started getting cut. And I said, well, wait a minute. If I do two parts, if I do the studio, do the background, put the two together, we could save not having a big crew going out on location. And so that's originally why I did composites. But in the transition of that, that whole compositing thing, my friends challenged me and said, my photo friends said, you're no longer a photographer anymore. You're now an illustrator or a retoucher. And so I started to debate that and defend it. I said, wait, Ansel Adams manipulated. I've been putting filters on my cameras, lenses for years. We're always manipulating, right?
Of course, they did it already on the big negatives.
Exactly.
They already airbrushed.
And so I thought, well, why now is it a problem? Why can't you accept that retouching, compositing concept as being a photographer?
Because it became too easy.
Well, that, and you're right. Part of it is when the biggest complainers were people that weren't doing it, right? Say, you're cheating. You're a cheater. I said, well, okay. So, at any rate, the point is, though, during that year or so that I started defending my position of doing composites, I had a revelation, and that was that all along, really, I've been an artist with the camera. That's been my goal. The tools really don't matter. It's the end result. Yep. Do I get there? Because my vision tells me how to get there, right? So I saw you use some smoke, right? Mm-hmm. And that's adding something to build drama, right?
Correct.
We do stuff all the time, lighting to build drama, the lens choice to build drama. All these things to help build drama. And here's what I think is really interesting. And this is a thought that I had never really thought of this before. As I get older and as I grow in my, sort of formulating my ideas. But, a photograph's not reality.
No.
It's a representation of reality. Pixels or film, whatever in the film days. And when we used to say, well, we want to be a purist, photograph, and it's real. It's not real. It's never been real. The thing about our human interaction to something that's two-dimensional is that when we wake up every day, we typically have the same routine, right? and we see the same. We drive to work, we get on the the train or whatever, and we see things, right? Now we see sunsets, sunrises, different things happen. The color temperature changes from the high noon to early morning, but really, we kind of get used to the same old thing every day. Then, when an artist comes along and creates something that you don't see every day
from that same scene,
yeah, then you go, that's amazing. Or you see someone that's beautiful, but you make them look even more beautiful. Or an athlete that even looks stronger. Or whatever it is you're doing, you're building a little bit of fantasy, drama into the photograph. And so I think that's important, because what people don't want to see is what they see every day. They want to see something new, fresh, and that's why, as a photographer, you have to constantly be changing, reinventing, trying new things, because your audience gets bored very quickly. And so that's why you do filters or fog or lighting or whatever, and you just keep changing it up and reinventing yourself. And so that's what I've been doing for 40 years now. You think, when's it going to end? When have I arrived? Well, you never do.
No, it's I don't know who said it, but the best adventure is the journey towards the end of the adventure.
Right. I agree.
And I remember we recently visited New York, and I wanted to see the Amityville house. And I knew from the start off, it's going to be a disappointment, because it's just a house. However, it was such a fun trip. First, the planning of the house, going there, the drive through it, the finding the house. And I was just standing there, and I already had so much fun. And then I just took a picture of the house and was going like, the whole trip there was so much more fun.
That's right.
And I think with photography, our learning experience is, it should never stop. And a lot of people ask me, and I think they ask you the same thing, do you have the perfect light setup? Do you have the perfect lens? And I always tell them, there is no perfect light setup. Now, what's your take on that?
Well, okay, so when it comes to lighting, there's so many options, modifiers, octoboxes, softboxes, beauty dishes, strip lights. I mean, there's everything, right? And so when it comes to lighting, just like with composition, you can say there are some rules, right? Rules of thirds, whatever. But when it comes to lighting, really ultimately, there's no right or wrong, except that, so let's say I have an overhead light. If I raise that overhead light and I get these big shadows, your eyes are dark and nose and everything's lit, and and it can look like a horror film, right? So if that's your goal, then you've arrived, right?
Yes.
But if you're trying to photograph a beautiful model, you don't want that to, that's lighting. So I always say, lighting is about trying to get, to make someone, hopefully toward your vision as an artist, but really my goal is to make someone more beautiful or more attractive or more, like
scary.
I said, superhero looking than they are in real life. So my lighting is built to move me in that direction, right? So again, my lighting goal, my end result may be different than your end result. So if I came along and said, Frank, you're doing it all wrong, you say, well, no, actually I'm getting where I want to go, right?
Yep.
So it's a personal thing. It's about me going through with all the tools and just taking them and working them to where I go, I like that. That's the most important thing. And the thing that most people don't understand is that it's all about me bringing a model in and practicing. So you have a louver on this kind of an octobox type thing here, right? And so you say, what does that do?
Channels the light.
Okay.
Steers it.
Well, you can tell me that, but until I take that and get a model, I don't understand that.
Correct.
Even if you actually told me and showed me pictures, until I go and take that and get a model, I don't understand it, and so I have to go and practice that. And so that's what most people don't want to do. They want someone to tell them the whole formula.
Actually, they don't want to tell you the whole formula. They want to start at the end result. This morning I had a manga drawing workshop, like a 1 hour one-on-one with a Japanese lady who learned me how to draw manga. And she just looked at me. She said, okay, now you're probably not going to like this, but we're going to start out by creating a square. And I said, oh, I exactly know where you want to go. She said, okay, where do you want to go? I said, okay, you want to make me three-dimensional? She said, yes. I said, okay. So we drew the rectangular. And then at one point she just said like, okay, can I ask you something? Now, a lot of people just want to draw the beautiful manga face. And a lot of people don't want to start with the basic of sketching, drawing an egg, drawing a circle. And I find that a lot of photographers, especially in workshops, they see an end result, like for example my dragon lady, the picture, and they want, oh, I like that, I want that picture. And they don't understand that that picture started out with a mannequin in a studio, with one beauty dish and a grid, to see the difference between with the grid, without the grid, with a white surface and a silver surface, and then with the diffuser and without, adding 1 second light.
Do you talk to your mannequin?
I always talk to my mannequin because you have to coach your model. She never talked back.
Yeah.
So that's, and I think a lot of people take too much shortcuts.
So let's go here. I was in sports. I was in track and football, but I ended up in gymnastics in high school. And so the first week in the gymnastics class, there were the bars all around us, right? They were all there. And I wanted to get on the bars. And a coach said, okay, the first thing you need to do is learn how to do a forward roll. And you go, that's easy. So, there's a mat, right? And you stand up, you have to stand up and then go into a roll and stand back up, right? But if you're a brick, you don't roll very smooth.
No.
So you have to learn how to roll smoothly, right? And we did that over and over and over, day 1, day 2, day 3. And I keep looking at the bars, and I go, I want to get on the bars. Not until you learn how to do a smooth roll, because that's what you're going to do on the bars, right? But you got to learn the basics first. And I think you're right. A lot of photographers want to pass that and get to the final end result, and they don't want to put in the time. So if there's, people ask me, what's your greatest asset, or what is it that makes Joel Grimes who he is? And I say it's the ability for me to go and take something and practice it over and over and beat it in the ground until I get it right. And so it's the hours, putting in the hours. That's my strength. It's not being brilliant or a creative genius. It's the fact that I've been able to put in the hours. And it's fun. Putting in the hours is fun.
It is. I remember being in front of your class at Photoshop World. And I remember that one guy asked you, like, okay, I have this composite. Can you look at it? And you looked at it and you said, like, okay, now do it 100 times more.
300.
Or 300. And he just looked and he was going like, and you told him, like, listen to me, every time you do it, you will learn something new. And I never did compositing. And after that time, I started doing compositing. And I just gave it a try, like, okay, this composite is done, great. Okay, now delete, start over. And I found that the second one not only went way faster, but I found little things that I didn't like. Now, after I think 6 or 7 times, I found out that I started repeating stuff. So that's when I actually stopped. But it was there was such a huge difference between those 4 or 5.
Yeah, I say do 300, not different ones, but I'm saying 300, if you do 300 composites, at the end of that time period, it may take you 2 years to do that, 3 years, I don't know, but 2 years. I always say, send me your 300th one, and I'll critique it. And in 5 years, no one sent me my 300. Their 300th composite. And there's 2 reasons why. One is they never got there. Number 2 is by the time they get there, they don't care what I think anymore.
No, because they know the tricks.
Because now they know the tricks. So the best way to learn how to composite, yes, you go and get videos and you can learn some things, but really it's by repeating it. Someone said, how do you do the little shadows on the feet, when you put someone in a composite full length? And I say, well, that's pretty hard. It's actually kind of tricky. And I said, I could have a whole class on shadowing and shading. And I probably should. I probably should do that. But I said, you know what? Just go practice it. And after about 20 times, 50 times, you start to get it. And you learn little tricks, add a little grain, a little noise to it, just kind of break it up, Build it in gradients. Then use an eraser brush to make straight edges across, like how the light would fall, from behind someone, casting shadows. So you learn that kind of stuff. And it's just by practice.
Now, looking at the future, you're shooting with a Canon, of course. You're using Adobe Photoshop. You're using Lightroom. You're using iPads and whatever. Where do you think the future goes?
Well, it's interesting that when you look back 100 years. So let's go back in history 100 years. When they had glass plates. I guess that would be about the right time period.
probably.
And then glass plates went to the gelatin film base, right? And then that eventually we went to digital. So you say, well, what changed from glass plates to film? And what changed from film to digital? Well, the tools changed, but it still takes a creative person to make a photograph.
That's exactly what I wanted
Yeah.
to hear.
So that's the secret to the whole thing, is that, yeah, you come along and maybe one day we'll all be using a little, camera that's the size of an iPhone. I mean, that may be the future. It doesn't matter. If it is the future, it is the future. But the fact is that it still takes a creative mind to do something that's unique, and that's the secret to the whole thing, is you being unique to you, to your vision. And the scariest thing for most people is that they're nervous about putting their stake in the ground, right? Because they go, am I doing it right? Well, how do you feel about it? I feel really good about it. You're doing it right.
I know a lot of people freak out at the moment because of the new cameras that are coming. Like, I don't remember the name of the company, sorry for that, guys. But there's this camera coming out with, I believe, 27 lenses.
I saw that, yeah.
And it looks awesome. I already signed up for a demo of it.
Right.
And you just point it, you take the picture, and later you can do your depth of field. But now it actually has high resolution. And a lot of people freak out. That's not photography anymore. And I was just going like, this is awesome. Because when I'm on the street, now I'm sure that 100% of my images are in focus. It doesn't make me a better photographer. It just makes me like, I remember in New York, I once walked in the pouring rain and I took a beautiful image of a girl passing over a zebra with a dog. But I had to react so very fast that my focus was off. Okay. I still used the image. I converted it to black and white, so had a lot of noise and you have instant art. But if I had that camera, I would have now just pointed like, okay, I want the focus to be there. It would still be that same moment. There will never be a camera that will choose your moment. So what's your opinion on people who freak out like that?
Well, think about this. Okay, so when it comes to retouching an image, a composite, my attention span is about 2.5, 3 hours. Okay, so after about 3 hours, I'm done with that image. Right? That's about how far I can go. Now I can go start another one and put 3 hours into it, but I can't do a 6-hour retouch. I want to put a pistol to my head at the end of it. That's my personality, right? Mm-hmm. So just like your attention span in the computer is going to be different than mine. So I say to people, look, if your attention span is 10 minutes, then build a body of work based on a 10-minute retouch. Because you'll do lots of 10-minute retouches. You'll only do 1 2-day retouch, and you'll give up. So the same thing is carrying gear. So when you, like, I have strobes and battery packs, right? And so let's say I have a model, I want to do a portrait view. We get in the car, the van, we take off, and we're going through the desert, and we're looking for some big rocks with the mountains in the background. And I go, wow, there's a cool set of rocks. And it's low, you could throw a football, and that's about how far it is. I grab all my gear, I schlep it out there, and I'm sweating, I put it up, and I set it up, and do a portrait. But if someone said, wait, there's some really cool sets of rocks, let's say it's 5 football fields out. I look at that and go, not me. I've already reached my limit, about 100 yards. And so everybody has a limit at what they'll carry, how far they'll go in retouching, all these things, right? And so that's the beauty of photography, is that, so some people say, I can't carry a single lens reflex with a battery pack and a big old honking lens on it, but I'll carry a mirrorless camera. All of a sudden the mirrorless camera gets them out the door.
Yeah.
Okay? And so there are some people that won't carry a mirrorless camera, but they'll carry an iPhone.
And in the end, it's all about the pictures.
That's right.
So, and not about the gear.
So it's what that does is that just opens doors for us to either go further, spend more time, go, do things we wouldn't normally do by having tools that would say, you know what, that fits me better. Yeah. I still can carry the Canon with a battery pack and a big old lens. I can still do that. But I'm starting to get to where, oh man, 5 hours of carrying. We just walked in the streets of Amsterdam, and I have a couple lenses, and at the end of the day, your neck is crinked up.
Look at Jay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, all of a sudden now you start to think, Maybe a lighter camera is better. But my point is that hopefully there's a new tool out there that fits you and your vision, and it gets you out the door. Number one thing is get off the couch, get out the door and start creating, or in the studio and start creating images.
Final question. A lot of people are like, I can't shoot like this. My area is too small. My area is too big. I don't have anything interesting. Or I'm handicapped. Now I know that you're as a retoucher, you have a handicap. You're colorblind.
I got some mental deficiencies too.
Yeah, but don't tell people
Ask my
that.
wife.
Don't tell people that. But what do you think about, I always tell people, if you find an excuse, you'll always find an excuse.
You'll always take it.
Yeah, but if you are just looking for opportunities, like, for example, I never ever will be held back by a handicap. If I would, and I hope it never happens, if I would not be able to walk, I would get out in a wheelchair. One of my students actually, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I actually know two of those. He's in a wheelchair, he can't move anything. Now most people will go like, okay, that's the end. He said, no way. He had a camera mounted, he's using a straw, and sometimes he follows a workshop.
That's great.
And we just drive him in through the double doors.
That's great.
And he's coaching the model, and he's using a straw. And
wow.
And I just look at somebody like that, and then I see somebody else going like, yeah, Frank, I can't take pictures like you because I have only a Nikon D700.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And I go like, look at that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So did it ever held you back that you were colorblind?
No, well, it never has. But when I was in high school and I did my first color picture, it was really green. I don't see green, so I came out with my big old smile on my face, and I went to the teacher and I went, "What do you think?" He goes, "You're colorblind." He didn't know it, but he knew right away. And I said, "Yes." He goes, Don't ever let your colorblindness keep you from chasing your dream."
That's great.
And so again, he rescued me, because I would have thought, I can't be a photographer now, right? I'm colorblind.
Now, guys, this is how important, and I can't stress this enough, a good teacher is. If his teacher would have told him, you're colorblind, forget about photography, I would now be interviewing an empty chair. So if you're in the teaching industry, make sure that you always motivate your students and never, ever give them an excuse. So sorry to interrupt
No,
that.
that's true. I have an empty mind, but not an empty chair. No, but the thing is yeah, we remember I talked, if you heard, I had a whole session where I talked about our humanity. See, I'm human, and it's easier for me to stay warm inside. If it's a blizzard outside, I don't want to go out. But there's some amazing pictures you can make in the blizzards, right? So it's the ability to take yourself outside of your comfort zone. So we'll always take the shortcut if we can, or the easy way if we can. And we're lazy generally as human beings. But if you have the passion, it gets you out early in the morning. It gets you out in the cold. It gets you, all those things. The passion drives you.
I will never have the passion of Moose Peterson, trust me. 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, early morning's a tough one. But don't make excuses. We're good at making excuses. But
oh, that's not an excuse. I'm not just willing to do that.
No. I'm saying as human beings, we will. I make excuses too, don't I, hon? Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, she agreed. There's times I make excuses, but the fact is, as a general rule, my passion drives it.
If you have a really important assignment, do you let Amy, your wife, check your work for color?
No.
Boys.
No. You know what's. On occasion, I'll have one of my sons come over and stand over me, but that's like once every 2 years. I retouch all my own work, and I let the retouch go, meaning I let it take its course. And here's why. An amazing thing happened. When I started retouching, I thought, I can't do this. There's no way I can't color balance, especially skin tones. So I developed a look, a workflow, desaturating and doing stuff. And then I put it out there and I say, this is the Joel Grimes look. And so perfect skin tone rendition is not the end result. It's drama, mood, whatever, right? So there's my look. So why mess with that?
That's true.
Why mess with that look? Someone come along, there's a little too much red in the skin. I go, I do take out red, yellow, and I take the master, desaturate, master over about -15, the red about -12. and the yellow about minus 10, 12. That's on every image I ever retouch. And that just cleans up the skin, takes out the little bit of the red, a little bit of the yellow, and then that's what I've used. You looked at my work, that's what I get.
I love it.
So it's that look that I'm getting from my color blindness that gets me to the end result. Why mess with that right now?
True.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so very much for being here. And let's visit some places in our area.
Good.
I'm going to show you around where we live.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time.